Hello and welcome to I think this is the third one of these I have done run design for, well, for your home games, for whatever it is you guys really want to do with it. Hopefully you guys will find at least part of it interesting and or useful. This is the notes for Games for GMs 2, in which we did a very Mad Max uh, death race, basically. It is the first of what is going to be at least two different runs that I'm going to put up notes on that use abstractations of game mechanics rather than actual game mechanics. The second one is going to be on the gambling slash casino side of things. That'll probably be next week so that I can get both of them out of the way. But today we're dealing with the Death Race 27 and or not 27, sorry, 2070's. And here we go. This is going to be a little substandard due to the way that I have no Johnson in mind for it. There's a lot of different ways that this job could come to your team. Um, it's a off the books Barons area race that they have. However often you want to do it, like every 6 months, every year, that kind of thing, where a bunch of people are going to get together and they're going to perform some illegal street racing, but not on the street, obviously, because we're going through the Barons, either one, or really any place you have that is lots of open road where there's going to be no law enforcement interactions. You could hear riggers could hear about it from like an underground racing or just a racing knowledge skill. A mechanic contact could bring the idea to the team. Go gangers and just standard Johnsons did it. The first time I did this, I have the description right there, so I don't really need to say it. The second time, it was one of the riggers had heard about it that was on the team. This was in Games for GMs 2. And they brought the idea to their team of like, hey guys, we don't really have anything going on in the shadows. Do you want to try this and we can make some money? To which the team was like, you know what? Sure, why not? Because we're Shadowrunners. We love making money. I'm going to go down here a little bit into the payday, because one of the different things that I did about this run was the runners themselves had to do their buy-in fee, which let me do a couple of different things. Since the runners are putting forth, 5, 10,000 unions of themselves, it allows me to do a bigger payout, because in reality, the payout is less money than what it sounds like. When I say you have the potential to win, 70 grand, in reality, when you take the money that you have already put into it out, you're only really winning 60, and then that's down to like 10 grand per person, and along those other things. You can blow it up or make it as small as you want. If you go with a more standard Johnson, he could cover that entrance fee, but give them other things to do. It's obviously up to your table. I don't like to put how much you should pay for these things into these run notes, because I don't know your table. I don't know the kind of power level you wish to run and that kind of thing. There's a couple of different ways it can really work out, but this is a slightly different situation. The gambling run will be have a similar thing, because it works out basically the same way. Um, Going into the legwork, I didn't go into details like I did on the previous ones, but some notes and things that I did was a bunch of colorful individuals. You're going to want to have a half dozen to or so other racers that are involved. And as you go find some super Mad Max car pictures. You can find a really souped up car that looks nice, like real crazy tuner type things. Uh, and then give them a couple of different drivers that, you know, car A is with driver one for faction alpha, as I forget of a third thing. So as they are going through their various parts of legwork, they may find from one fixer, they may find like, oh, I heard these three racers are involved, but I don't know what they're driving. So then they can work other avenues and uh, get other information in that way. Work in some kind of I used in Games for GMs 2, there were two go gangers that were involved, and while their gangs were not on the outs, as it were, rival gangs are always kind of rivals with each other and always kind of looking for a way to get some more turf, that kind of thing. Have a bunch of information, but break it up so that it's sort of like a puzzle for them to put together as to who is who and who is driving what and where they can turn their advantages to. Um, this will also be where you can loop in if your rigger has another rigger or mechanic who contact. Sorry, my cat was being annoying. You can rope them in as that rigger's contact isn't only going to work with your rigger. He's going to have other people he works with. Maybe it turns out they find out that that mechanic is working with another racer, and now you put a bit of conflict of interest in there of, do I want to do stuff against that racer when I know that my contact has invested money into the potential of them winning? Do I want to go in and try and sabotage that? Or do I want to go to my contact and see if he can put me in contact with them so that I do have the opportunity to do bad things, but to cover my tracks? All of the different information should be mostly acceptable. The secondary part of all of the information is um, to build options for them to perform shadow activities, basically. By giving them, let's say, 3 days before the race, you put a limit on how much information they can gather when there's a bunch of different information out there. But at the same time, as they find out information, they can formulate little mini plans to encourage themselves to win. Um, in the first race, I had them track down a couple of the other racers, and one guy did a little mind magic on them. The other guys did a little uh, automotive sabotage to them. In the second time on Games for GM2, when I ran it, two of the racers were go gangers, and they went and incited a little bit of ganger violence on each other, so that those two would be, at least one of them would drop out of the race. Maybe both of them, depends upon how bad the violence gets. You want to straight up kidnap another racer so he doesn't show up? Sure, go ahead. Why not? Bribe somebody into backing out of the race or trying to get somebody else on your side? Sure, go for it. This is where it comes down to, I can't give you legwork on here because I don't know the other racers you're going to end up designing. Um, but give them the opportunity to cheat. And an important thing here is, if they are going to cheat, have somebody cheat against them. Because just like they're looking into information on their other racers, when they have put in that yes, they are going to compete, other people are also going to be looking for information. So if your rigger has a tricked out car that they never drive and they leave someplace, well, maybe, that second night while he's at home, have him roll a perception test, and maybe he sees somebody who is, you know, running away from his garage where he keeps his car in the middle of the night. Oh crap. Did they do something? Is this even related to me? Now he's got to go out and, do some automotive mechanics on his car, that kind of thing. Maybe, you know, uh, maybe one of your teammates is a big party animal, and he goes out to the club the night before and somebody slips him a Mickey and abducts him. Well, there's a complication. Maybe they then use that kidnapping that they performed to let the driver know during the race. Is like, if you don't, forfeit the race, or you don't do what I say, I'm going to do bad things to your teammate, and that will play into a little bit, down in here. Uh, the race itself is a big spot of open land. It can go through Z zones, it can go through radiated zones, it can go through all kinds of crazy stuff. The runners will have the start point. It'll be one of those races where you come back around to that end point. There will be camera drones that are watching over the race. They're not really there to enforce any actual rules other than, did you travel the requisite amount of distance and not just, cut across uh, the wide open lands in between places. Think of them more like checkpoints than actual security drones. Um, no funny business. So within a mile or so of the race start slash finish, they have is a safe zone. It is just driving, cars getting up to speed. The organizers don't want bullets flying in that area because there's going to be a lot of civilians and there's going to be a lot of criminally important people, we'll call them, the ones that are uh, maybe some mafia, yakuza organizations, maybe some go gangers are putting up money. Maybe like the ancients do a lot of things with motorcycles. Maybe they have one of their guys doing this as an initiation or promotion type thing. Um, for the actual race itself, it is the driver, and he can have one co-pilot slash crewman in his vehicle, and that is about the only thing that the organizers are actually going to check. You know, all right, you got two people in here. All right, good. Get in line, and then the race will start. There's a lot of opportunity for deals to be made and that kind of stuff. I do recommend running this, dependent upon how your setup is, over a two-part thing. If your guys get into the whole sabotage aspect of things, you can spend one night with all of the setup, and then the next night just come back and be super ready to just Mad Max crazy, go nuts, and do crazy things. I highly recommend giving out the edge for doing insane things because that is the theme and the feeling we are going for here. And then coming down into the abstract part, if you have a meat space game, go to your dollar store or like the toy aisle, spend a couple of bucks and get a package of like Matchbox cars. And then if you pick up one of these guys, I will have the link in the notes. It is a seamstress ruler, which is a cloth floppy ruler that is in meters and inches and centimeters on either side of it. On your table, just lay it out real long and straight, and then should have zoomed this in previously. I failed you guys. Nope, still failing you guys. Um, and then if you have like an online game, what I did was I drew out a little grid like this with different colored boxes, one for each racer, put some pictures on there. This will make sense when I get into the mechanics of how I did it. Um, have your little Matchbox cars, have your little pictures over here, and then when we get into the actual race itself, um, break the race up into units of measurement. If you're using the Matchbox cars, like each car length can be one unit. On the digital Roll20 table here that I used, each little square was a unit. And as you go forward, have your driver roll his pilot groundcraft test for each hit on the pilot groundcraft test. Move them that many squares. That is how much closer they get to the end. For your NPCs, just roll a straight like D6, or if you want, you can break it up to different numbers. You can, if you want, roll different dice pools for all your guys to move it. That probably takes a lot of time and effort that I am personally really lazy for. So every so many units of measurement, like car lengths or squares on the Roll20 table, make a section. This is going to be like a general area, uh, a strip of road, and then on each of those strips of road, you will be able to interact with the other people on that strip of road. There will be considered um, within range of shooting your guns, within line of sight for spells and that kind of thing, and you are also in range of those guys to be acted upon in however you want. We're getting abstract with it because running a, let's call it, 100-kilometer race with 3-second combat turns is going to get super tiring really quickly. And when you think about it, that race is going to end within 30 seconds. You're going to be able to look down the road and see the race end, except for the one car that drives away. So we're abstracting it for the want of keeping it interesting and getting that flavor of this Mad Max Fury Road Thunderdome type situation going on. As you go through at predetermined locations, have some kind of hazard. For the first time I ran this, there was a couple of points of difficult terrain, and there was a lake, like a real shallow, due to Seattle rain, giant pond, more or less. But it was drivable through. In the earlier parts, there was a vehicle that looked like it was a amphibious boat car because it was crazy and weird. So what I did was when they hit that lake, it was difficult terrain. So when you roll your pilot groundcraft test, you're only going to move half the number of hits you got at rounded down. And that was going to be for everybody except because in my case I made this amphibious car part of the race. That one wasn't going to be part of it. It was going to be able to move it normal because it is designed to do so. That is something you can mix in. There was the Games for GMs 2. There was going to be due to the way that they had set up the two gangs to fight against each other, one of the gang members made it into the race, the other gang did not. So the other gang was going to set up an ambush to attack the race to make sure they took that guy out. So at the very least, that guy didn't win. So that was a third thing. When they were going to get to that section of the race, there was going to be a whole lot more combatants that just kind of roll in and just start shooting at everybody, trying to just disable as many vehicles as possible. A whole lot of extra combat and that kind of thing. The third thing I had in mind was like a downhill hairpin back and forth set of turns, which is going to take you a little while to get through because it's a lot more horizontal movement than forward movement. Or you could off-road it a bit and then just drive your car down the thing and maybe do some damage to your transmission and that kind of thing. These are going to be things like have a little note card if you're doing the meat space ruler things. Like, all right, at 1 point, at 0.5 meters, have this kind of terrain or hazard show up to change the rules of the road, as it were. Give them a little bit more interesting flair to the just driving anything. Um, for movement, we are going to just have the rigger or driver roll his pilot groundcraft. Or if you're going to be crazy, you can do this in the air or on a boat. Um, whatever fits your flavor. He will move his hits in units, in car lengths, we'll call them. Now, for the other racers, give them certain dice and have them roll that and then just move that many squares. It will usually end up with one of your cards being super slow, but hey, that's sometimes how it goes. Maybe somebody else off screen sabotaged that car and he's having huge amounts of problems. For other actions that are not movement, because we are really only dealing with one moving thing throughout this thing, all dodge actions are going to be handled by the driver as per normal rules because he's the guy behind the wheel, and the other racers should be have no real allegiance. The runners can arrange things like maybe get the word in the ear of one racer that this other racer was talking mad trash about them and kind of set them at odds with each other. Then maybe during the race, that racer is going to take more shots at the other racer. Or other different things. Maybe they got somebody on their side and agreed to split the prize money. So that person is not going to shoot at your players. They're going to shoot at other people. For most crazy pink mohawk Mad Max insanity, totally let the driver roll an assist. Chances are hopefully your players will jump onto the idea and you can do things like straight up ramming attacks with the vehicles. In Games for GMs 2, I had one of the street tough characters climbed out of the car, leapt from one car onto the other, and then began punching out windshields and just beating up drivers in their own vehicles. It was great, but the driver was able to do like a pilot groundcraft to assist the guy in jumping from their vehicle to the other because they're pulling their car closer, getting them in a good position. Fine, do it. Awesome. You have a person who has the first time I ran this, there was a person who bought a minigun, and they had set up a set of straps to one of the passenger doors so that the door could be kicked open and propped open, and since they were strapped into it, they could just fire their minigun at whatever that was in the way. And I let the driver do an assist to help the shooting because uh, you are getting them in a position to do it. The driver won't normally have a lot of crazy things they're doing. Like if they have gunnery, they can do that instead. But that's boring. Uh, Allowing them to do things to help out everybody else will empower them as opposed to just be like, all right, you can make your driving test to move, and then make your gunnery test to shoot. Endorse the endorse the zaniness. Get a little crazy. That's We're not here to follow rules today. We're here to do fun stuff and do crazy stuff that they will take these stories with them forward in their gaming life of this one time I leapt from a car, punched my way through the windshield, threw the rigger out the side door, grabbed the wheel and slammed it into a third car. Like that's the stuff you want them to take home from this. If you are within the section, you're considered in range. This way, you don't have to worry too much about the the actual distance between vehicles. And like on my graph here on my online thing, 1, 2, and 3 are listed vertically, but the cars are going to be able to swerve left and right and do all kinds of crazy race things between them. So that doesn't actually signify where the cars are in relation to each other. You're not going to race across the barren landscape in a straight line. You're going to swerve around rocks and debris and all that other stuff. You're going to try and get ahead of somebody and then block them out because otherwise they're going to, rear end you, that kind of thing. However, even though this is a rigor focused run and it is kind of designed that way that your matrix people and your street settings and your faces all get a lot of spotlight on most runs where it's like, all right, I'm going to go do some social engineering and we're going to get in there, that kind of stuff. You're going to spend 20 minutes to a half hour dealing with basically just the face by himself most times, or matrix people all the time. This is your rigger needs a time to shine. Let him just shine as brightly as possible. Let him do crazy stuff. Let him go nuts. However, you don't want everybody else to be bored. So, like during the legwork / sabotage phase, there's all kinds of crazy things to be done by everybody. Your big, beefy muscle guy can totally break the legs of one of the other drivers. Have a nice day. You ain't competing. Your makeshift guy can, maybe bootstrap the one guy's comlink so that when it reboots during the race, he can take control of his vehicle. Uh, that kind of stuff. The race, when it is going on outside of those little checkpoint cameras, you can really kind of do whatever it is you want. The first time I ran this, it was a 5-person gig. 2 people were in the car driving along doing their thing. The other 2 was a mage, and I forget what the other one was, but they both had motorcycles. So they went from area to area, cutting across the outside of the race parameters, and set up to interfere. At one point, they had a spirit use the movement power on one of the vehicles to slow it down. On another point, they took some pot shots from long range place. They went and set up like a grenade trap and let their driver know where it is, so that driver could then try to force the competition on top of it. That kind of thing. Let the other runners do that as you go through the race. They can get out there. Sure, they could even get on their own motorcycles and be crazy yahoos who just start shooting up the other cars. But don't show too much allegiance because otherwise, who knows what's going to happen when the race is over, right? At the start / finish line, it is going to be a large uh, assembly of barons type folks. So that means gangs, organized crime, low-life scumbags, all of that kind of thing. There are plenty of opportunities here for other things for runners to do. In Games for GMs too, the face began to take bets on things. So all of a sudden, it was an off the books, non-sanctioned gambling situation that what ended up happening for him was one of the mafiosos who was there didn't necessarily agree with what he was doing, but he was able to talk it out with that guy, and as a result, he got a contact out of it. So there are things to do. If one of the runners gets kidnapped, apparently I did not fix my microphone problem that I thought I had fixed a different way, but continuing on. If a runner is going to get kidnapped, well, maybe let's say it's the Decker, so that he can get information out and still communicate and deal with his team. But they didn't, the people who kidnapped him aren't exactly the brightest. They don't realize he's a Decker. Because when you sequester off one person like that, it kind of sucks to be that person. It's like, oh, well, I got two of my people are in the race, two of my other people are coming to save me, and I can't do anything. So if you kidnap the Decker, it allows them to still interact with things because they can still deck things. They could hack the cameras at the place where he's being kidnapped. They can still interfere with the race a little bit because you'll have a little bit of noise, but hey, that's the price you pay. And you can do little side scenes of those people rescuing the person who got kidnapped, and then the race is still going on. Maybe during the race, the people who are competing are going to play along with the kidnappers and do what they want. But as soon as they get word from their team that they have rescued whoever it is that got kidnapped, all bets are off. It is time to go crazy. An important thing to think about if you did do that, though, is remember that the focal point is on the race. That is the goal of the run. It is not to have this sub run overshadow it. So, again, real loose mechanics. Okay, you guys are going to break. You guys want to sneak into place? Give me a stealth check for each of you and a perception check, and then describe the scene. It's like, all right, you guys are here. You have entered into the warehouse. You can see your Decker contact is strapped in the chair, and there are four dudes who are in the room, kind of pacing around. Cut back away from them to your other people. Do race stuff. Come back over. Decker sees the team. What do you do? He can make a distraction. He's like, I gotta pee, something to break them up. Okay, social roles or whatever from them. They get up and do something. To the two people rescuing, it's like, okay, Decker has separated them. Give me a combat role of your choice. Set some kind of threshold in your mind, and cinematically describe how they, or let the players cinematically describe how they take down these two crappy mooks that are here, because now of the four, the Decker has had one or two of them come over with him to take care of the bathroom or whatever it is. Go back to the race. Embellish the shit out of the race. Make it the best thing ever. There's a lot of different ways that you can intermix people into who is involved, because the Shadowrun is a crazy world like that. Coming down into the payout, I usually won't do one of these for these notes either. However, some things to note. The team will probably earn some public awareness because a lot of people that are criminally connected will be, at the very least, interested in the race and watching or paying attention to who wins. You will probably also earn some street cred because while those people did see you compete and stuff, it was awesome because during the race, you guys made it awesome. And if they do super crazy stuff, leaping from car to car, some sick last minute win by a nose thing, give them an extra street cred because, one for competing in the race, one for being incredibly awesome and entertaining. And then later on, for at least the next couple of months of play, anytime the driver brings up the fact that he was the guy that won, give them a situational die bonus. You have a Johnson hiring you for some crazy escort border crossing job. You're like, yeah, well, I won Death Race 2078. How about that for a driver? Give them a couple extra dice. Reinforce that you are, a big deal in this circle. Um, and then the pot is going to be based upon how you set it up. It should be a pretty, it should sound big. You have a five runner team of, you know, describing it as a 50,000 Nuyen grand prize or like 75,000 Nuyen. That'll get, people salivated and interesting. But at the end of the day, you're only paying them individually 10 to 13,000 Nuyen or so. And that doesn't include anything they're gonna spend out on it. So it'll probably be more of a, if they go crazy with it, a good potential for a higher karma run. You can make a lot of friends, you could make a lot of enemies, and hopefully it'll provide you with some an interesting hooks in ways to get other parties involved in your runs that weren't previously, because now they've done this giant race and they've made friends or enemies, and the organized crime is like, my racers got taken out under suspicious circumstances. Who won this race? Let me investigate them. If they kidnapped one of your runners and you were competing, uh, when they find out that you broke your dude out and you won the race anyway, they're going to have a little bit of a grudge. Little things like that to allow you to get other other factions involved, or to just make the world seem more alive and have more people in it than just the runners and the people that are interacting. Because all of these other people that are in this race, they also have other lives. So I think that's going to wrap me up for this for today, guys. Thank you once again for coming by and watching. I will have this document in the comment section down below. I will put a link to Games for GMs 2, which was effectively this run down there, even though it's all on my same YouTube channel. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments. I have a Twitter account handle. I don't even know how that is. I'm not good with the social media. It's at GM_Bamce. And I look forward to seeing you guys around next week. Thank you very much.